Ciao. From there, as promised, Daylight Saving Time Committee is now getting underway. Let's see here. They are in Washington, D.C., and they are having a hearing on whether Daylight Saving Time should continue. This forever debate. Let's listen in here on WCNC+.
Mr. Yates, you may give your opening statement.
Thank you so much, Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Blunt Rochester, and members of the United States Commerce Committee. Thank you for inviting me here today. Allow me to start with a hypothetical. Imagine two people commit the exact same crime on the exact same day, and they are the same in every way, but today one of them is out of prison and one of them remains behind bars. What is the difference? The second man was sentenced on the Monday after we spring forward into daylight saving time. Researchers at the University of Washington reviewed every criminal sentence handed down in America over an 11-year period and found the single harshest day of sentencing of the whole year was that Monday in March, when judges, like all of us, had been jolted awake an hour earlier than their bodies had been expecting. That one seemingly harmless government mandate, dialing our clocks back 1 hour, means some people receive harsher sentences than they otherwise would. The harm doesn't stop there. Both of your opening statements alluded to all of the problems that we have, and peer-reviewed studies consistently show that heart attacks go up, strokes, car crashes, even miscarriages spike in those days following the spring switch. A study from the University of Vienna found deaths overall just increased by 3% in those couple of days after the change. Medical errors go up, diabetics lose glucose control, crime goes up. Just yesterday, the journal Neurology published a report saying that more people get migraines in the days after the time change. And why do we do this? For the farmers? No. The story about the farmers was always just a myth. It was created as a PR stunt by a retailer in Boston who wanted more daylight for shoppers to have more time to shop. He thought it would sound better if we said it was for the farmers. If changing the time twice a year is so deadly and such an outdated relic, why haven't we fixed it yet? It's probably because of this issue we face about whether we should lock into permanent daylight or permanent standard time. I've seen countless polls and I've talked to thousands of people about this. Most people don't actually prefer one or the other that much. They just want to stop the switching. There are valid arguments for either permanent choice. So what should Congress do? What should this committee do? My name is Scott Yates. I've been reading, writing, and testifying about this for nearly a decade, and I have this recommendation. Lock the clock, as this bill says, but after a 2-year implementation. If we wait until 2027, we'll continue to allow states to opt out and opt into standard time, just as Hawaii and most of Arizona have done. This is fundamentally a states' rights issue and a geography issue. Consider Indiana. Indianapolis is roughly the same latitude as New York City, but about 700 miles west. For Congress to force Hoosiers to go to work and school in the dark only to accommodate barbecues in New York City seems rude. But as the Commerce Committee, you do have an interest in promoting a stable and predictable environment for commerce. That's why I suggest Congress establish a firm date, 2027, to permanently end the clock changing nationwide. States would then have ample time to decide if they want to remain in daylight time or opt out and pick standard time. They wouldn't have the option to continue the deadly twice-yearly switching. With clear federal guidance, schools can evaluate and pick their own bell times, businesses can plan confidently, free from the confusion caused by time changes, and states would even have time to hold elections to let the people decide directly. I started my remarks with that study about the judges. The reason researchers could do that and find so many other ways that the time change is harmful is DST creates what scientists call a natural experiment. Scientists can compare real-world results about what happens when the time changes. Interestingly, in traditional experiments with lab rats, scientists are careful not to change the clocks for daylight saving time for the rats because it's too disruptive. So my closing question for you today is this: at long last, can we treat our citizens with the decency that we treat our lab rats? Thank you, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Yates, for very interesting testimony. Mr. Karen.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chairman Cruz, Senator Blunt Rochester, and members of the committee for asking me to enter testimony on behalf of the members of the National Golf Course Owners Association on a pretty complex issue. We are headquartered in Charleston, South Carolina, and represent approximately 4,000 public courses, private clubs, municipal courses, and resorts throughout the United States. A little bit about the golf economy. Many elected friends see golf simply as a game, until it's time to talk about taxes, land use, water, employment matters, tourism, zoning, etc. What comes into view is a $102 billion industry employing nearly 2 million people across 15,000 properties and 2 million acres of land, so that nearly 30 million Americans can enjoy a great walk outdoors with strangers, friends, and family while hitting a little white ball. Little known fact, 75% of golf courses in America are open to the public, and nearly $5 billion each year is raised for charitable causes through golf. I also understand golf outings can be an effective fundraiser for political campaigns. The health benefits of golf are well documented, so we tend to vehemently disagree with Mark Twain's assessment of golf as a good walk spoiled. Now, about the clock. Locking the clock doesn't change how much daylight we have, just where it shows up on the clock. For golf and many outdoor activities, a shift can have significant economic and wellness implications. Golf thrives on what we call recreational daylight, the overlap of sunlight and people's availability to be outdoors. Americans overwhelmingly prefer evening recreation over early morning. This isn't just about golf, it's about soccer, jogging, walking, biking, tennis, and so much more. Making standard time permanent would shift 1 hour per day from recreational to non-recreational daylight. Simplistically, it trades 8 p.m. for 8 a.m. At golf courses, later hours generate about 40% more revenue per hour than early mornings. Trading backwards would cost the average public golf course at least 7 to 8% of their annual revenue by removing the best inventory we have on our shelves, which is approximately 37 million rounds of golf, and would cost the industry at least $1.6 billion or nearly $200,000 per course. This analysis only includes green fee revenue and does not include spending on golf car rentals, merchandise, food and beverage, golf lessons, and other areas of the business. Thus, only 7% of our members support making standard time permanent. Those who favor standard time year-round say their morning play is more valuable to them than their afternoon play. These may be resorts that want players off the course and in the restaurants at a reasonable hour. Now, making daylight saving time permanent would provide additional recreational daylight from November to March and would add an estimated 23 million rounds to the current golf inventory. This would give the industry a tailwind of about $1 billion or roughly $250,000 per affected facility. 64% of our members support making daylight saving time permanent. The status quo, changing of our clocks twice per year, avoids both the significant downside while forfeiting the moderate upside. 27% of golf course owners and operators support keeping the status quo of changing the clocks. Many golf courses slow down in the winter and enjoy having some relief later in the day for their employees with the sun setting earlier. Or they may have a healthy clientele of older players who would prefer no disruption to their 7 a.m. tee time or their 11 o'clock bridge game. Keep in mind, all these figures do not include thousands of private clubs, which would augment the impacts in both directions by an enormous sum. In conclusion, the Senate is facing a classic Gordian knot. There will be winners and losers no matter which way the knot is cut. But our members clearly prefer daylight saving time and strongly oppose permanent standard time. We recognize the sleep-related arguments for standard time, but the benefits of extended daylight for physical and mental health, outdoor recreation, and public safety are significant. Obesity, depression, and crime all have ties to reduced daylight and sedentary lifestyles. So in short, we urge the Senate to avoid the consequences of permanent standard time. We encourage solutions that preserve evening daylight for golf, for health, for recreation, and local economies. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman Cruz, Senator Blunt Rochester, distinguished members of the Senate. Thank you for having me. My name is Dr. Karen Johnson, a state I'm a neurologist and practicing sleep medicine specialist in Massachusetts, and am here representing the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. I want to extend my gratitude to Chairman Cruz for having this timely committee hearing. In December, President Trump called to end daylight savings time, and his Make America Healthy Commission's mandate to reduce chronic diseases, especially in children, aligns with permanent standard time. Unfortunately, permanent daylight saving time and the Sunshine Protection Act do the opposite. So I have three main takeaways. First, the spring's clock change to daylight saving time is bad, but permanent daylight savings time is worse. Second, year-round standard time is the natural, healthy choice promoting physical health, mental health, performance, and safety. Third, history supports that permanent standard time is the only viable solution to end seasonal clock change. So let me elaborate. The majority of Americans do consistently want to lock the clock, but it has been more inconsistent about how to ditch the switch. But in March, there was a new Gallup poll that just showed a significant shift in public opinion, with twice as many Americans now supporting permanent standard time over permanent daylight savings time. 60% of Americans and 80% of teens don't get the recommended amount of sleep, so there's a lot of room to improve sleep. Think about how you, your children feel after a bad night of sleep. Maybe you forgot an important meeting, drifted out of your lane, eating that extra bowl of ice cream. I know I've done those things. You may have struggled to get your teenager out of bed, or been a little short with your husband. Now, instead, think about how much better you feel and function after a good night's sleep. Permanent standard time would give more Americans to get the opportunity to improve their sleep without even trying. The sun is one of the most powerful drivers of health and well-being, but the timing of sunlight is what's critically important. Without enough morning light, or with too much evening light, our circadian rhythms delay. This disrupts our sleep patterns and our body and brain functions. Permanent daylight savings time would cause sunrises after 8 a.m. for 2 to 4 months every winter, depriving us of this critical morning light. This is why permanent daylight saving time would be exponentially worse than seasonal daylight saving time. The adverse effects are greatest in our children, our teenagers, and other night owls whose bodies' clocks already run late. As discussed, there are many harmful benefits that occur in the days after this change, especially in the spring, to daylight savings time, including more strokes and heart attacks. As highlighted in the prior testimony, brain function is really affected by sleep. And so, we heard about judges making harsher statements. However, these harms does not mean that permanent daylight savings time would be better. Instead, the later sunrises and sunsets of daylight savings time lead to higher risks of chronic diseases, including but not limited to cancer, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, and these outweigh the short-term risks of what happens with the time change. There's also data that says that permanent standard time also results in better mental health outcomes, including reducing rates of depression and suicide. This is not surprising, as morning light and healthy sleep are known treatments for depression. On the other hand, poor sleep increases the risk of drug use, alcohol use, and other risk-taking behaviors. There are some misconceptions I want to address. As discussed, permanent daylight savings time does not make days longer, nor is it the reason why people feel better in the summer. Instead, permanent daylight savings time is a hidden mandate to wake Americans up an hour earlier, to their alarm clocks rather than the sun. If we called it the Go to Work an Hour Earlier Act rather than the Sunshine Protection Act, no one would be voting for it. Permanent daylight savings time does not increase overall exercise levels in the US. And even if some people exercise more, obesity and heart disease, these chronic diseases, are still more prevalent. There is while darkness comes with health and safety risks, daylight savings time is not the solution. There is no data to support that permanent daylight savings time would reduce overall crime or motor vehicle crashes. Instead, later sunrises and sunsets are associated with 20% more fatal crashes. The negative impact of daylight savings time on sleep and our brain health harms the economy. Workers, especially those with early start times before 8:30, think of your farmers, your transportation workers, your factory workers, are less likely to be productive and efficient. Workplace injuries rise after the transition to daylight savings time, and healthcare spending increases. On the other hand, permanent standard time improves academic success in our children with higher test scores. Your constituents' utility bills will be lower with permanent standard time by reducing heating and cooling costs. And finally, the U.S. tried and quickly abandoned permanent daylight savings time twice before, most recently in 1974. It just doesn't work. It won't last. For those that are serious about ending clock changes, permanent standard time is the only viable solution. Please refer to my written testimony for more details, and happy to look forward to the questions later.
Thank you very much. Dr. Harkey.
Chairman Cruz, Ranking Member Blunt Rochester, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to share the IAHS research on the road safety implications of daylight saving time. When discussing any topic on road safety in the United States, it is important to set the stage. Simply put, we are in a road safety emergency. Crash deaths have risen nearly 30% since 2014, from below 33,000 to more than 42,000 in 2022. Pedestrian crashes in particular have reached crisis levels, climbing more than 80% from their low point in 2009. Changing the clocks twice a year is relevant to road safety first and foremost because it affects the amount of ambient light during peak times for travel. We know that darkness is associated with increased risk of fatal crashes. We do about a quarter of our travel at night, but nearly half of motor vehicle occupant deaths and 3/4 of pedestrian deaths occur in the dark. Obviously, adjusting the clock cannot increase the number of daylight hours, but can only shift how they align with work and school schedules. Since people travel at all times of day, and the risk created by darkness varies by road user type, the effects of these time changes on crashes are complex. The aim of our recent study was to examine the effect of changes in light conditions associated with the beginning and end of daylight saving time. We examined 10 years of fatality data for the 5 weeks before and after each time change, and only considered crashes between 4 a.m. and 10 a.m. and between 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. Ambient light conditions were calculated using the sunrise and sunset times corresponding to the geographic coordinates of each crash. Crashes resulting in vehicle occupant deaths fell 7% in the 5 weeks after the time change in the fall, and increased 12% in the 5 weeks after the time change in the spring. The opposite was true for crashes resulting in pedestrian or bicyclist deaths. Those crashes rose 13% in the fall and declined 24% in the spring. The net effect was 26 fewer morning and evening crashes with pedestrian or bicyclist fatalities per year, and 29 additional morning and evening crashes with vehicle occupant fatalities. It is important to emphasize that our study does not point to a preference for standard time or daylight saving time based on road safety alone. The clearest takeaway from this research is that there is a strong relationship between increased darkness and fatal crashes, particularly for pedestrians and bicyclists. This is consistent with previous studies, including our own work from 30 years ago examining the effects of daylight saving time. While the clock may not hold the answer to our road safety crisis, there are known solutions for protecting pedestrians in dark and low light conditions and for reducing the crash toll overall. We should commit to infrastructure and vehicle improvements that have been shown to increase safety for pedestrians and bicyclists on different types of roadways in urban, suburban, and rural environments. This includes engineering treatments to improve motor shielding behavior and vehicle technology such as better headlights and automatic emergency braking. Efforts are also needed to address speed on our roadways. The speed effect on crash severity is more pronounced for pedestrians and bicyclists who do not have the benefit of the vehicle structure to protect them. Speed limit policy, enforcement, engineering, and vehicle technology all have a role to play in slowing down drivers. Such a multi-pronged strategy to improve pedestrian and bicyclist safety at night exemplifies the Safe System approach, which the U.S. DOT has adopted as the guiding paradigm of the National Roadway Safety Strategy. But implementation has simply been too slow. We are alarmed by the rising toll of crashes on our nation's roads and dismayed by the lack of urgency to fix the problem. For this reason, we recently launched an initiative we are calling 30 by 30, a goal to reduce U.S. fatalities 30% by 2030. Achieving this reduction will require a concerted effort by all stakeholders. We will increase our efforts to address risky behaviors, seek opportunities to improve safety for everyone inside and outside the vehicle, and explore ways to make commercial vehicle fleets safer. We ask everybody who cares about the needless loss of life on our roadways, including this committee, to think about what they can contribute to achieving the 30 by 30 goal. Thank you.
Thank you. You'll notice the freshmen have taken over this committee. And we have an agenda, don't we? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Listen, I'm pleased to be here. John Curtis from Utah. And thank you, panel, for this important topic. And I think it's fair to say that my constituents share the same frustration that's been articulated here by the back and forth. Mr. Yates, you mentioned in your testimony that the only reason we still have this time change every 6 months is due to the federal government's inability to decide between standard or daylight savings time, which one is best. Based on your research and your outreach, do you have any indication how many states would opt out and maintain permanent standard time if your proposal for permanent daylight savings time were enacted?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. I don't have a specific answer. I can talk to you about some of the conversations that I've had with state legislators, including, I don't know if you know Dr. Raymond Ward in Utah. He was the sponsor of the bill there, and he thought, and he said all of his constituents told him that the state preferred, that everybody preferred to stay in permanent daylight time in Utah. Utah might be a case where standard time might be a good option, and that's why I think the 2-year implementation would actually be a great chance for everybody in Utah to look at what.
So let's talk about Utah.